This is the Fantasy Ladder Podcast, episode 27. I'm your host, Steve, at Fantasy Ladder. This podcast is brought to you by the IDP Guys Network, so make sure you subscribe and check out the rest of the great content on the YouTube channel and, of course, on the IDP Guys website. It certainly does not hurt to get a subscription where you'll get weekly dynasty redraft, obviously offense and defensive articles, as well as a multitude of podcasts and YouTube channels. So definitely check out the IDP Guys Mothership, and please subscribe to the newsletter. You'll get that in your inbox every Wednesday morning, full of great information and links to the articles and content there. I do have kind of an interesting announcement. I am officially now an affiliate of BetUS. So it is a online sports book. Right now they're having a very special promo using a link that I can send you. When you deposit $100, you'll get an extra $125 to play with. So if you're interested in that, reach out. I can send you that link. And when you make that deposit, you will get that bonus. So please take advantage of that if you want to. So reach out. So today we're going to be covering week 3 of the NFL matchups. So we're going to be previewing the games with a very special guest, a very good friend of mine. His name is Zach Kurt. You can find him on Twitter at Zach K Attack NFL. He is a writer for Dynasty Pros Fantasy Football. He is the trade master himself and the host of Dynasty Never Rests. So Zach, how you doing? And welcome in.
Hey, I'm doing great, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it was kind of a long time coming here. I've been on your show a couple times. I had an awesome time there. But finally, you were on my show, so I'm thrilled about that. So just a couple questions here to get you warmed up before we get into the games and the matchups and everything else. I'm just curious, and I'm sure that the audience is too, just so we can get an idea of your level of seriousness and commitment to fantasy football, so we can take your advice as seriously as possible. Curious, just how many leagues are you playing in this year?
So it's interesting that you asked that, Steve. But I'm a man that likes to go by overs and unders here. So I'm gonna give you a prop bet here, and
Okay.
you guys can hedge your bets. But I will give you 38.5.
Ooh.
That's your
Okay.
bet. Do you want to over or under?
So I know you're pretty hardcore. Um, I'm just kind of gauging this off of myself. So I'm in 27 this year. First guest was in around 22, I think it was. Last week's guest was in exactly 40. So 38 and a half. That's, oh man, that's a very interesting line. I am gonna say under. I'm gonna say mid 30s.
I am in 41 leagues this year.
There it is. Wow, 40. Now, are these all lineup setting leagues, or are some of those best balls as well?
I have two best balls. One is
Okay.
one is a guillotine best ball, and then the other one is just a best ball dynasty. But I enjoy the roster setting. I enjoy the trading. So I don't play in best ball a ton.
Gotcha. So obviously a lot of leagues. So that's gonna be a pretty intense, progression through the week. So like, are you constantly tinkering your lineups throughout the week? Do you just like wait until Sunday morning? Like what's your Sunday morning routine looking like to make sure all those are optimized?
So I do a lot of my optimization on Thursday,
Okay.
um, because for the most part, 95% of what you need to on Thursday. Helps me put my right people in the flex, all that fun stuff. Um, but, there are injuries Sunday morning, surprise inactives. Like I was expecting Alvin Kamara to play last week. And
Sure.
because of having 40 leagues, I did miss him in one,
Oh,
and
gotcha. Yeah.
and so my but it's tough for me because on Sunday mornings I always go to church, and sometimes we don't get out until 11:30, and I go to church 20 minutes away. So to go through
Oh,
40
sure.
lineups in that time frame is it's pretty darn tough. And so that's why I like to optimize everything on Thursday, and then I can go for my inactives um, on Sunday morning.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point you bring up, especially because of the time zone you're in. I kind of have the benefit of being on the East Coast, where like the early round of games starts at 1. So when I go to church and I come back home, I still have approximately 2 hours. Now, those 2 hours are not just like me sitting in silence and quiet with a candle, where I can really reflect and really like think deeply and clearly on who I'm moving out and in. I got two boys who are just running around like animals all the time. So it can get a little intense, especially when there are these like late inactives, right? Like the one last week, what was Alvin Kamara, that was a bit shocking, as well as like Michael Pittman. I think we had a couple days to prepare for that, but either way, those are ones where, like, say you kept to your Thursday rule, that would be very challenging to overcome, especially if you don't have like a good system of knowing who's in what league. Like you missed out on the one Kamara spot. Um, but on Thursday, you're right. You have a very good idea of what the general landscape is going to be. So, like in that case, if anyone is questionable, I just will make like a special note to just make sure I check this league, and I'll prioritize it based on what the stakes are. You know, of course, if it's
Hmm.
just more for like bragging rights, I mean, I don't want to lose any leagues, but
Right.
certain leagues just hold a higher priority. Like my home league, for example, big time bragging rights, but also a decent pot there
Hmm.
where, that is going to be where my brain goes, to really make sure things are in order there. Even though I'm 0-2 in that league, we don't need to go any further with that. But either
I,
way, the point remains. Yeah.
I have one more thing to say about it. I think even if I did have more time and opportunity to spend before the game on Sunday morning, I have learned from the past that Sunday morning lineup tinkering just is awful. Like you're so close to the games and you're ready. You're so excited for the games to start that you're staring at your lineups. You're looking at every league, and the moves you make on Sunday morning, they're never good. Like I, I always struggle like 15 minutes before the game. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a great, you know, this is a great swap. I should do this. And then the
Yeah.
player that I bench scores 20. Last I did that this Sunday. I got into Scott Fish because I hadn't checked it after Thursday, and um I had benched Keenan Allen, but I had Garrett Wilson in there
Mm.
instead, and I was like, he's not. I don't think he's gonna do much, so I put Nick Folk in instead.
Okay. Yeah.
I lost by like 14 points.
Man, I hate that. Oh,
So
that's a rough one.
I always find myself when I do tinker on Sunday, it it always backfires. So it's just a good rule where there's no time crunch. You're just looking at it analytically with not this, oh, the games are going to start in 15 minutes. I'm so excited. You just have, I guess, I think more clearly and smarter when the games are a couple days out.
Absolutely. No. Yeah. So you know, kind of a recurring theme that has sort of come with each of these episodes that we've had in season is just taking the emotions out of the decision making, right? So if all week you have all this perfectly justifiable reasons to play this guy compared to this guy, then all of a sudden you swap it, like that's just it's just like, I don't know, like the Heat. In some ways, it'd be better just to put the phone away, unless you have all your ducks in order already. Yeah, I know in the past I certainly have done that too, and just like instant regret, So that's just a really brutal one because of course Garrett Wilson just went nuts, and we'll talk about him in just a minute here. But oh man, but no, it's definitely good advice. Just to really do the full rundown prepared for Thursday, and then just kind of keep an eye out for like the late stuff because small percentage of that is gonna just rise like out of nowhere. But obviously, if you have questionable guys, you want to keep an eye on that. So sounds like a plan. So that's good. That's awesome. So I'm always curious how people navigate that multitude of leagues and how to keep their heads on straight. I love it. So basically, we're just going to recap the second week of NFL action. So Zach, what were some of your biggest week two takeaways? This could be a real life football takeaway or a fantasy football takeaway. Anything come to mind for the week two of NFL action?
I mean, to be honest with you, Steve, I could talk, for the next 4 hours about just what happened in week two.
For
It's
sure.
so easy to talk football with you, but I would say there's a couple of key things. I would say that the NFC continues to show that they are the much weaker conference.
Okay.
Um, you just continually see, playoff supposed playoff teams like the Vikings get just annihilated, or um,
The Buccaneers didn't look so hot against the
the,
Saints, even though they won.
yeah, the Buccaneers didn't look good, and the Saints are projected to be in that playoff bubble as well. They didn't
Yep.
look good, and the Packers didn't look great. Like they faced the Bears, which isn't much of a feat, but the NFC just doesn't look like the AFC does. And you've also got some AFC supposed juggernauts that just can't seem to get a win on the board. Are we going to start worrying about the Bengals or the Raiders? They're 0-2 right now, and 0-2 getting to the playoffs statistically is very tough to do. I just that that Bengals team and Raiders team, I think, are being coached poorly, and it might keep them out of the playoffs because the Miami Dolphins are being coached very well,
Oh
and they've
yes.
they've got some absolute studs. So would I be shocked to see the Dolphins get in there over the Bengals? At this point, it's absolutely realistic, and I think Bengals fans and people NFL fans just need to start to realize that it coaching makes a significant difference. And last year, I had some questions with Zach Taylor in, just in key moments and things like that. And they got to the Super Bowl, and he continues to show those just really weak points. And we've seen the Josh McDaniels experience fail once before.
Right.
It's likely to happen again.
Yeah, and that game especially was really wild how the Cardinals came all the way back, forced overtime, and then won in overtime when they had they overcame, what was it, a 17 or 20 point deficit or something. It was
Mhm.
pretty. It was at least two scores
Yeah.
and or two like touchdowns worth of scoring.
Yeah.
So really just incredible stuff. I did not see any of that game, but it's just hard to imagine you having that kind of lead and just not holding it. But it's just insane. But I think you bring up a lot of good points as far as being encouraged up to this point. It's like, can these teams make the adjustments required? Like the Bengals, for example. I really thought that were gonna just demolish the Cowboys with Cooper Rush and without Dak Prescott, and
Oh,
already showing
absolutely.
showing a lot of weaknesses against like the Buccaneers in Week 1, even with Dak there. So it's just So you got to give a lot of credit to Cooper Rush, but I don't know what happened in that game. It was just crazy. But yeah, it really makes you wonder if like the Bengals are just the old Bengals again, you know.
Well,
But I
and
think they just have so much talent on that team. It'd be shocking to think that they couldn't still be a contender, but you do have to win games. You know,
yeah,
it's crazy.
the thing is, like, they invested like the 75 million into that offensive line,
Oh yeah,
and
right.
Joe Burrow's on historic pace for sacks right now. Like, it is absolutely nuts. So when you spend that 75 mil on your offensive line, like, I don't know how that protection scheme isn't working. For me, it comes down to coaching, and some things they're not meshing as a unit. And if the Bengals want to win, that's got to be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm just going to run through some things that really stuck out to me for real life football, and then we'll kind of blend in some fantasy as well. So a couple big injuries of the weekend. Trey Lance suffered the ankle injury; he's out for the year. Had surgery, not expected back. And then Justin Herbert got banged up in the Thursday night game, looking like he'll be questionable, but he looks like he could still suit up. But that would be a completely like atmosphere shifting
Oh, absolutely.
injury for real life and for fantasy football purposes. So we must protect Justin Herbert at all costs. And then, as I mentioned before, the Cowboys win against the Bengals with Cooper Rush filling in for Dak Prescott. The Broncos' new offense and head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, is very unimpressive through the first 2 weeks of the season. And again, we're talking about can adjustments be made? This would be a big one where you really hope so. And Mike Evans is suspended for one game after the scuffle in the Saints game there with Marshawn Lattimore. So those were some of the big headlines that I took out of week two. Week two is also a very interesting, like, equalizing week as far as some of the poor performances we saw for the skill position players in week one. They kind of swung back in the opposite direction, not in every case, but a lot of them did. Some that really stick out to me. The big one is Mike Williams. Another big one is Nick Chubb. Damien Pierce, to a certain degree, just did not get a lot of work at all. And then now in week two, Rex Burkhead got like almost zero work. He only had like 2 touches in the entire game. So that may have been more of like a confidence building exercise there in the loss against Denver. Brees Hall had a much better game in week two. David Montgomery, he had a fantastic rushing performance. Did not get a touchdown, but still he looked great. That definitely was a nice reminder of why he was drafted as your RB2. Where after week one, you kind of that left a bad taste in your mouth. Aaron Jones had a big time performance against the Bears. Sorry about your Bears there, Zach, but he came back in a big way there. Tyler Lockett, DJ Moore, Devonta Smith, Amari Cooper, Allen Robinson, all wide receivers who had a very poor week one, bounced back, had a very strong week two. And then we both play a lot of dynasty, so I really get excited when rookies happen to be playing well. The three big ones for me this week was Garrett Wilson. Once again, I apologize for your Scott Fishbowl swap. Jahan Dotson of the Commanders and Drake London of the Falcons. Garrett Wilson caught 8 catches on 14 targets for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jahan Dotson caught 4 of 5 for 59 yards and 1 touchdown, giving him 3 total touchdowns on the season, but only on 7 catches. So you really wonder if that is sustainable. Just there's a lot of talent on that Commanders offense. Is very fascinating, but I am very happy for Dotson's strong showing so far. And then Drake London, 8 catches on 12 targets for 86 yards and 1 touchdown with a ridiculous 46% target share in the Falcons offense for week two. So,
Yeah,
yeah, really, really awesome stuff there.
I think it's really important for when you bring up Drake London, he over the entire NFL is second in target share.
Jeez,
Cooper
that
Cup is
is
number one. and Drake London is
He's
number 2.
wow.
Um,
That's amazing.
so that's definitely something like if Drake London is still cheap in your redraft leagues, I'm sure he's not in your dynasty leagues,
Right.
but he's he is the clear one right now, and he seems to be the red zone guy. He seems to be the third down guy. He seems to every facet of the game. They're like this. We drafted this guy high. We're going to use him, which you don't always get that with a rookie out the gate, but it's really impressive. To tag
Absolutely.
to tag along with some of your pendulum swinging people, I kind of want to list off some of the people that didn't quite catch the pendulum and are starting to make us worry as fantasy owners.
I love
Um,
it. Yeah.
the Chicago Bears offense, besides David Montgomery, all of it, like Cole Kmet, Darnell Mooney, everybody had high hopes for those two. Darnell Mooney has an 18% target share, but he's got 5 targets on the season.
It's not great. Yeah.
No. So to me, in one QB right now, all those guys are droppable. Because you took Darnell Mooney in the 6th, 7th round, but you cannot rely on that Bears passing game right now. And maybe in a couple weeks they totally change it, but right now, I just dropped Darnell Mooney for Garrett Wilson in one of my redrafts, and so
There you go. Yeah.
I'm happy with that. Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, guys taken in the 1st round that have shown nothing. Derrick Henry kind of saved you with a touchdown the
Yeah.
other night, but even then, what was it, a 9-point performance? Like it that's not what you want from Derrick Henry. Dalvin Cook has not gotten the touches, nor has he performed well with his touches. Um, those two are definitely concerning. My boy Chase Edmonds, oh man, um,
Yep.
the game script was perfect for him last game, and the Dolphins didn't use him. So I don't know if that's just Chase Edmonds did something to make McDaniel mad last week, and he's pulling the Kyle Shanahan, um, or they just feel like Mostert's the better guy. But right now, it's really hard to trust Chase Edmonds. Um,
Absolutely.
Adam Thielen, DK Metcalf, Juju, Elijah Moore, all guys you thought were going to be consistent starters, and they can't be trusted in your lineup right now.
Yeah. No, I think that those are really good calls. All 4 of those guys you just rattled off were guys I was targeting heavily. If I wasn't getting like the round 1 or 2 wide receivers, I was often scooping those guys up and feeling great on
Oh,
draft day.
absolutely.
And now, it's just, you're having I'm having like an existential crisis, like having these guys who I'm like really
Yeah.
big fans of, but they just aren't getting it done. It's like, it's really maddening. But, it is one of these things, give it a week. Because again, at this point of the season, we have all the options at our disposal until the bye weeks start, until the injuries start piling up. So
Mhm.
we're at a point where we do have a lot of options. So if we don't want to take on the risk of some of these guys that just have not performed up to our liking, and other ones like Travis Etienne, um, you know, keep him on your bench, but don't feel that great about starting them, unless it's like a super deep league and you really have no other options. But yeah, I don't know. In your typical like 1 flex, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver leagues, it may be very difficult to get them into your lineup. I agree with you.
Yeah, and like most of these guys, I'm not dropping, but besides the ones on the Bears offense, because they do have this great potential to do what we expected them to do. And so
Right.
like you got to bench stash them, but it's really hard to start them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of, you were talking about Edmonds having like a good opportunity and how that game flowed against the Ravens. the Bears were in a position to just like air the ball out in the second half, and then they just kept feeding the ball to Montgomery. They even started deep in their own territory, and they're just handing the ball off, handing the ball. I mean, obviously, Montgomery was running extremely well, but like you just think, well, if they're ever are going to have an opportunity to air it out, it's going to be now, and they just
But
didn't.
the thing is, like, they set up the opportunity for play action so well,
Oh,
and
for
they
sure.
ran two play actions the entire night, but they ran the ball 30 plus times. Like, I just and not impressed with the Bears right now. The defense actually looked pretty good. They just need to finish their tackles. But
Oh, gotcha.
we can we can talk Bears another time.
No, that's all good. No, yeah, it's good. It's good to vent. It's good. It's good to get it out there,
Yeah.
for sure. Otherwise, it's just gonna bottle up, and then it's all gonna come out on someone who doesn't deserve it, But yeah. So at this point, we're just gonna go through the entire week 3 slate. We're gonna do this in sections here. So the first part is gonna be looking at the primetime games: Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night. We'll get into some listener start sit questions. We'll go through the Sunday early slate, do some more listener questions, and then the Sunday later slate. So to kick things off, Thursday night football, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cleveland Browns. Um, Seems like most of the typical guys you'd want to start in this matchup, you're going to be starting. So just kind of rattle some of those off. Nick Chubb, I'm very comfortable starting. Najee Harris, I'm very comfortable starting. I would find it harder for me to bench those guys. Are you in agreement there?
Oh, absolutely. Those are guys
Okay,
that you can't pull from your lineup. They've been Najee's been inefficient, but that's what we know of Najee, and so
for
you
sure.
can't bench those guys.
Then some of the wide receivers, Deontay Johnson, and Amari Cooper, like the wide receiver ones in their respective offenses, I'd be comfortable starting both of them. Then it gets a little bit questionable after them. So you got Chase Claypool, George Pickens on the Pittsburgh side, and then you have uh, Donovan Peoples Jones and where we're not really
David Bell.
considering, and David Bell, where we're not really considering them in our starting lineups unless you would feel differently.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Donovan Peoples-Jones had 11 targets the first week, and then Jacoby Brissett watched the film and said, "Wow, Amari Cooper is so much better at football than Donovan Peoples-Jones. I'll throw it to him next time." And
Right.
we saw it. So
Perfect. Yep. And then Pat Fryermuth on the Pittsburgh side, I would also feel comfortable starting him. Where would you feel, or how are you feeling about David Njoku so far this season? I've been very disappointed in like especially like tight end premium leagues. I thought he'd be a solid like tight end too, like a later option, but very
yeah,
just not
so
getting a lot of work.
so David Njoku was somebody that I was excited for. Jacoby Brissett's target rate to the tight end has been great, but
Right.
they have Harrison Bryant there too, and I think he's just a thorn in Njoku's side. We saw him break a big play last week, or yeah, last week, and so I think it's just going to be tough to rely on him on a weekly basis. I do think there will be weeks where he is very valuable, but he's he's not somebody I'm willing to start. He's not Pat Fryermuth, who I think is right now probably in my top 6 tight ends for rest of season.
Oh, perfect. I love that. Yeah. I was very into Fryermuth, but I wasn't like as bullish as I wanted to be because like the story I sort of told myself was I think Mitch Trubisky can definitely use um a target like Fryermuth to kind of advance the ball and advance drives. It'll be kind of inconsistent with like the down the field stuff, and that has um been pretty obvious up to this point. So I think I'm glad that is kind of um, played out the way I sort of foresaw it, but a lot of the other things I sort of foresaw have not been, playing out like Cole
Mhm.
Kmet. We don't need to bring up the Bears, but either way, like that's one where I kind of thought it could be like the same kind of a thing with Fields, but not so much. But yeah, so I'm very into Freiermuth. Now, Trubisky and Brissett, I think, are QB2s, borderline QB3s. I would not feel great about starting either one, even in a super flex. I think Mitch Trubisky probably more so for me. Where are you at with them too? For
I
like a
mean,
super flex situation.
I definitely would not call either of them QB2s. I think they're both
Mhm.
outside of the top 24 at their position in terms of fantasy and, well, real life. Um, so I would agree that I'm more willing to start Trubisky, but
Gotcha.
I I would love another option. Um,
Oh, for
because
sure. Yeah.
these guys, they're two stout defenses. These two teams, I don't think it's going to be a high scoring affair. I think it's going to be a lot of field goals, and I love Cade York, but that's I don't think you should trust QB, and hopefully you have a like they're your third option in a super flex league.
For sure. For sure. Last player that I didn't bring up earlier in this matchup is Kareem Hunt, who obviously had a massive week one, had a lesser role in week two, and Nick Chubb just went crazy. How are you feeling about Kareem Hunt? Would you, because like in a lot of cases he's like a pretty safe like flex play, and we kind of are weary of that on Thursday night. So say like if you as an RB2 play, is that something that you'd be interested in against like the Steelers?
Right. Yeah, the terminology I would use is he's a flex play.
Okay.
Um which is tough because it is Thursday night, so you don't want to stick him in your flex. But yeah, if you have a flex and you have Kareem Hunt, he's probably gonna slot in there, but obviously you want to move him to your running back slot because he will be playing on Thursday night, and just having that flexibility of the flex spot is always nice.
But you would feel comfortable
Oh,
starting Kareem Hunt. Okay, gotcha. Perfect.
absolutely. I mean, he's probably a top 24 running back. Um, he's just on that borderline, and so you know, you're probably gonna start him if you own him.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right, so we're going to move on to Sunday Night Football with the San Francisco 49ers at the Denver Broncos. The Broncos have another prime time. This is the second prime time game in 3 weeks where, you know, mid-August we were all fired up about that. Now we're kind of like holding our nose and we're just watching just because it's football, baby. But either way, now the 49ers have Jimmy G leading the offense. Still don't. And then Elijah Mitchell is on IR. Trey Lance is on IR. So we have Debo Samuel. He's someone that you're going to be starting. I don't believe. I'm not sure about if Kittle's going to be back. Is he still kind of questionable to play?
I mean, he's questionable, but they said that
Okay.
he was he was on the field ready to play last week,
Oh,
and the coaches said you don't need to this week. So like he was healthy enough to play last week, and the coaches were just like, you know what, we're gonna win this one pretty easy. Why don't you rest another week?
gotcha, gotcha. So how about Jeff Wilson? Is he a guy you would feel comfortable starting in most cases?
Oh, absolutely. Jeff Wilson is going to get around 20 touches. And to be honest with you, I think 49ers are going to just annihilate this game. The defense of the Broncos doesn't look good. The offense of the Broncos doesn't look good.
Right.
And even though San Fran lost their starting quarterback, they've got a guy who just is super comfortable in the system, and
Yep.
he's going to be able to carve up that defense. So it's going to be a running game script. Jeff Wilson is going to get you close to 100 yards and has the opportunity for a touchdown.
Gotcha. Yeah, I love that call. Yeah, I definitely like him as a volume play as well. Some kind of borderline plays. I think Jimmy Garoppolo could be like a QB2 in Superflex. He's kind of pushing it there. But maybe in this matchup, if it's going to be more run heavy, you might not be as prone to play him at least this week. How about like Brandon Ayuk? Is he kind of borderline for you, or is he just like a bench at this point?
So here's the thing. I think that Brandon Ayuk's stock just went up. With Jimmy G in the helm, I think that he is just going to get some more opportunity. His target share was much greater in the second game than it was in the first game. And so I think that Brandon Ayuk is, borderline flex. Like I would start Kareem Hunt over him, but I think he is in sort of that same book with Jimmy G in the helm.
I like that. Okay. All right. All right. Let's go to the Denver side of the ball. Russell Wilson, he's just a player I can't quit. So I will be stubborn and keep him in my lineup, even in QB1 or sorry, in one QB leagues. I still like Jerry Jeudy there. I still like Cortland Sutton there. Javante Williams. There's still a lot to like about this offense on paper, but when you actually see it play out, it has not been great. So I am still am willing to risk it and throw in Wilson, even though he has been um, below expectation at this point. I think Javante Williams, but both of us would be comfortable starting. Melvin Gordon has been kind of like a sneaky deeper flex option. I think he's just more of like a bench option at this point, just averaging about 7 fantasy points each game so far. I'm comfortable starting Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy overall as long as he's healthy. I think he has a questionable tag at this point. Any differing opinions on the Denver guys?
No, I don't believe that Jerry Jeudy will probably play. He didn't
Okay.
practice today, I don't believe, and so my expectation is that he's not going to be out there. So I love firing up Cortland Sutton. I have to fire up Russell Wilson. Like it's his potential. It's
Yeah.
so you've seen it once he finds his rhythm in that offense, he's going to be spectacular. But he's gotta find that rhythm. A lot of people have been saying, Nathaniel Hackett is just terrible. And while I do agree, um, Russell Wilson has not looked like himself. He is not comfortable in the offense yet, and you can see it. There was just a couple of plays that he made last week. I got to watch a good portion of that game, and I was just like, this isn't Russ. He needs to find his piece, find his center, and then he's going to do great things. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Alberto, they're all going to, rise in stock once he finds his comfortable point in this offense. But you don't want to miss that. And so you're like, oh, I'll start him this week, and he's going to blow up. He's probably going to have 18 points this week.
Yeah.
Something,
No, yeah.
somewhere around there. Just he's not there yet.
Gotcha. Yeah, so it sounds like we are in agreement on the whole, and then just keep an eye on Jerry Jeudy. Make sure you are prepared to swap him out if you haven't done so already. Now, Monday Night Football, we will end the slate with the overall slate, but we will cover more. The Dallas Cowboys at the New York Giants, the surging New York Giants who are 2-0. I kind of say that sarcastically, but not exactly the shiny matchup that could have been. I think just the drop off from Dak Prescott to Cooper Rush for fantasy purposes, just cannot be understated. I'm still comfortable starting CD Lamb. I'm still comfortable. Well, that actually might be it for the Cowboys offensive, who I'm like really surefire ready to start. I think Ezekiel Elliott is kind of borderline. Perhaps even Tony Pollard is borderline if you play in a PPR league, especially. What are your thoughts on the Dallas backfield? Because it has been very much split as far as snaps goes.
Um, I hate this offense.
Yeah.
It's so bad right now. But I will disagree a little bit on CD Lamb. I think that if you do not play in PPR, do not play CD Lamb.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. Okay.
I think in a standard league, he's had 5 points and 7 points. Um, just I I don't trust him in standard. He's going to get 7, 8 catches probably, and that's nice in PPR. But for 70 yards, 60 yards doesn't really help you in standard. But the backfield, I keep wanting Zeke to go out there and just dominate, but I kind of look at just the history here and over the past 2 games, and Derrick Henry didn't do anything against the Giants. I don't know that I love starting Zeke or Pollard. I would almost prefer Pollard over Zeke because
Sure.
the Giants, I think, are going to be ahead in this game. Um, and so it may be a passing game script, and that just bodes better for Tony Pollard. Don't like starting either of them, but in some situations, you're just going to have to.
Right. That's right. Yeah. So Zeke is was my second running back drafted in Scott Fishbowl. So in some ways, I feel like almost like I have to start him because like some of the other guys deeper on my lineup like have disappointed like Chase Edmonds or whoever. Like
Mhm.
I'm like comfortably starting like Michael Carter, where I'm not comfortably starting Ezekiel Elliott. If you told me that back in July when we did the draft, I'm like, there's no way that's gonna happen. Anyway, it's just one of those things. But yeah, so I'm gonna ride out the Zeke wave unless he's hurt. But speaking of hurt, no Dalton Schultz this week. He'll most likely have just a 1 week absence. Jake Ferguson is kind of an interesting guy to look at for like dynasty purposes, but I don't think we're starting him this week. On the New York Giants side of the ball, you have Daniel Jones, who's a borderline starter, even in Superflex, as far as I'm concerned. Saquon Barkley is a must start. Like you just start Saquon. Awesome start to the season. Disappointed slightly last week, but still got you double digit points. Uh, I really can't make sense of the wide receiver core. I've always have had a soft spot for Sterling Shepard, so I'm glad to see him involved. But Kadarius Toney, Kenny Galladay, I just don't know what's happening there with them two just playing just an absurdly low amount of snaps and getting like a lot less opportunities. I think Tony was injured too, but outside of Saquon, is there any Giants player that you would feel comfortable starting?
Oh man, I mean Daniel Jones and Superflex, I'd be fine with.
Sure.
Um, if you have to start a Giants wide receiver, for me it's Richie James, and
Okay.
I I hate that that just came out of my mouth, but
Yeah.
if I'm going to that depth of a player, I would rather start Noah Brown than
Oh,
Richie.
okay. I like that. Okay. Yeah, he's been getting a pretty healthy and consistent amount of targets there. So that's
He is
that's an interesting
he is
call.
he is a top 20 wide receiver in PPR this week or this season. I am definitely flexing him. I am fine with
Oh,
that.
okay.
Um,
There you go.
the DBs in New York aren't great, and he seems to be Cooper Rush's favorite guy. And so he's a flex option for me.
Yeah, it's one of these things where he'll always will get like the lesser amount of attention because they have to account for like the running backs because obviously Zeke is still very talented and Pollard's still very talented and CD Lamb is likely to get like the top corner matchup or get doubled. So there you go. It could just be like a kind of a nice little cushy tunnel to Brown. So I do like that call. So
I do have to put a stipulation in there though.
okay,
If
okay.
Michael Gallup is active, I won't start Brown
Gotcha. Okay.
because there's a chance that Michael Gallup plays this week. If he does play this week, I'm not comfortable with starting Brown because
Yeah.
his percentage of being on the field will go down.
His snaps, his opportunities, his targets are all going to be diminished. So definitely like your thought process there. For a second there, I had completely forgotten about Michael Gallup, so I'm glad you put that back into my brain space there. All right, so that wraps up the primetime games for week 3. We are now gonna go through some listener questions for start and sit situations here. So first one up is friend of the podcast at Lobos FF Den. Of course, we love Lobo. He asks Chase Edmonds or Travis Etienne in PPR. Yeah, exactly. That was exactly my reaction when I saw that question, and it really pains me to say that I was really in on both of these guys, as you were with Edmonds for sure, and now it is just a very difficult decision that must be made here. Which way do you lean? Edmonds is going up against the Bills, and ETN is going up against the Chargers. So, what are we thinking?
So my thought is that there's a world where Chase Edmonds gets 20 touches this game.
Okay,
For me, there's not a world where Travis Etienne gets 20 touches. Um,
gotcha.
the coaching staff just loves James Robinson. Doug Peterson was a huge advocate for Jordan Howard, and James Robinson is sort of that similar guy. And so I think that they're just going to lean on him like he leaned on Jordan Howard. And Etienne's going to get maybe 10, 12 touches. And Chase Edmonds may only have 6 touches. But I think his upside is greater because we don't have a defined vision of that backfield right now.
Yeah, for sure. I really don't like the matchup against the Bills. But I also just don't like the overall involvement that ETN has in the Jaguars offense at this point. My first initial thought was to go with Edmonds despite the tough matchup, but I think you have convinced me on the potential volume that he'll definitely see where unless Robinson gets hurt, I just don't think it's gonna happen that ETN gets more work than James Robinson at this point. So Lobo Edmonds for sure. All right, second question is from at Brandon underscore Kaiser one. A longtime friend of mine, a member of my home league. Shout out to the Barbarian Horde. So thank you for your question, Brandon. He asks Jerry Jeudy, if he's active, or Drake London in a half PPR. This was a pretty clear one for me, but I want to hear what you have to say there, Zach.
So for me, there's this injury question with Jerry Jeudy. If you have an equal option or greater option, especially because Jerry Judy's playing in prime time, you're not going to have a lot of options to decide from when it comes to that point. And they say, at 6:55, oh yeah, Jerry Judy's not playing tonight. Then you're like, I got to go flex KJ Hamler, start Drake London. It's just the right thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. So this was a little bit counterintuitive for me initially because I just have this obsession with Russell Wilson as a talent. So definitely a much better quality passer compared to Marcus Mariota in Atlanta. However, London has less target competition compared to Jeudy, just aside from the question marks of the health. But so far this season, Jeudy has seen he's been averaging 5 targets per game. London has been targeting 9.5 targets per game. So just purely on a volume basis and just what we've seen overall, I'm going London 100%. So
I mean,
we are, yeah.
you can bring up that target volume, but Judy only played 1/4 of the
Oh,
game.
that's true. That's a good call. Okay. Yep. He
Um,
left early. That's right.
and so having 10 targets in 5 quarters, it's not a bad thing.
Oh, for sure.
But it's still not the target volume that Drake London is securing.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, that's definitely good context that I did not write down. I initially thought it, but it didn't write it down. So I appreciate you mentioning that. Good stuff. All right, next one, or the next two are actually are very similar questions, and you'll see why in just a second. First one is at user than just a bunch of numbers. He asks Metcalf or Garrett Wilson, and then at Dynasty Bison, one of the great writers for IDP guys, asks DK Metcalf or Elijah Moore.
Oh,
Yeah. So very interesting that we're asking about Metcalf, and then with two separate Jets wide receivers. So for me, what this basically came down to is the potential volume in the offense, just in the passing game alone. So over in the first two games, Geno Smith, the Seahawks quarterback, averaged 29 pass attempts over the first two games. Joe Flacco for the New York Jets has averaged 51 and a half pass attempts per game. So we know what Metcalf is. He's an absolute monster of a player, only averaging like 7.5 points a game so far this year. Elijah Moore definitely disappointed week two, had a little bit of a better week one. Garrett Wilson blew up in week two, had a decent week one, but you likely weren't starting him. I'm going with both Jets guys here, and I want to see if you have anything different to say about that.
yeah, I think that the Jets are the better option here. And again, it feels just terrible coming out of my mouth. Like you never
Yeah.
want to pick Jets fantasy options, but the Bengals have been really bad. And would I be entirely shocked if the Jets came out of this game with a win? Unfortunately, no, I wouldn't because of how the Bengals have been playing. Like that Cowboys game should not have been close. And so I think that it may be a big passing game script for the Jets, and Wilson's going to see a lot. The grosser one to me is Metcalf and more, even though I love both these players. But
Oh, for sure, for sure.
I think you just bring up a great point in terms of target volume. The opportunity is just more likely there for Elijah Moore than it is for DK Metcalf. And Gino kind of showed his favor with Tyler Lockett in a negative game script last week. So that's kind of what I expect this week as well.
Gotcha, gotcha. Love it. All right, so we are now going to go through the early slate of Sunday games, starting with the Philadelphia Eagles at the Washington Commanders. We'll just run through the Eagles pretty quickly here. I think this is going to be pretty easy to run through. You're starting Hurts, Goddard, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. I like him as a flex option. The only semi-questionable one I've had leading into the season was Miles Sanders, but how he's been utilized, how he's been playing, I'm very comfortable starting him as well.
Oh,
You,
you definitely fire up Miles Sanders in this game. If you take the um, statistics over the past two games, the Commanders have allowed almost 150 rushing yards per game, and that's not including QB rushing yards.
wow.
So
Okay.
Sanders probably going to have over 100 on the ground, and Hurts is probably going to have 50 on the ground too. So yeah, Sanders is an absolute smash this week. He's one of my favorite starts this week.
Gotcha. I love that. Then on the Commander side of the ball, the literal surging Carson Wentz has looked fantastic. Um, I would feel comfortable starting Wentz as a super flex. Antonio Gibson, I would still be comfortable as like an RB2. I'm going to kind of limit my expectations a little bit with him just with how Philadelphia played against Dalvin Cook. And Gibson was not very efficient in week two. He got a touchdown that saved his day and had some passing as well. Um, but how about this Washington wide receiver core? I wasn't sure if like Curtis Samuel in week one was just like a mirage. Obviously, all the upside in the world just wasn't always consistently seen there in Carolina. Then obviously just had the awful just didn't play at all last season. Which of these pass catchers would you feel comfortable starting between Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, and Terry McLaurin?
Like if I just had to pick one,
Oh no, just if you had to flex any one of those three, or any one of those or are all of them start worthy, or would you kind of prefer one or two, or the other?
I absolutely think all of them are start worthy.
Okay,
Jahan Dotson would be the one that I would be least likely to start, but he also last week had the highest snap rate out of all of the wide receivers, and so like all of them, I'm comfortable starting. And I would also throw Logan Thomas in there. If you're
absolutely, yeah,
struggling at tight end, throw Logan Thomas in there. Carson Wentz loves tight ends.
yes, sir.
Logan Thomas is getting more healthy week by week, and he's looking good on the field. And one more thing you said, Carson Wentz was a starter in a super flex. I totally agree, but I think he's a starter in one QB leagues too.
There you
With
go. All right.
he is the QB4 right now,
Okay.
um, in 6 point per passing touchdown. I'm not sure where he is in terms of four, but when you're top five QB over 2 weeks, it's really hard to bench that guy. So I would be comfortable playing him over a number of QBs.
Okay. That's great. Yeah, I love that. Um, Great. So let's move on to the Houston Texans at the Chicago Bears.
Monty, that's it.
For on the Bears side of the ball, definitely David Montgomery. I would agree there. Again, we already touched on Mooney and Komet, and even Fields is still a little iffy, although he still has the rushing upside that you're looking for. Um, but still, just with the vast amount of other QB options, it would still would be kind of difficult to get him in a super flex spot, as far as I'm concerned. Who knows? I mean, maybe against the Texans, it's an opportunity to just turn the whole thing around. So it'll be. I'm still very intrigued by what can happen there. But at this point, because of all the options we have at our disposal for starting, like I mean, you said you would have you already dropped Mooney and Komet and all this, but I definitely want to see it before I can trust it. In my
Right.
lineup.
And that's
Uh,
how I feel about it. I have to see something from them in order to start them.
for sure, for sure. The Texans side of the ball, I'm still good with Brandon Cooks. Uh, Damien Pierce to me was always what was a borderline flex option anyway. I'm not likely to start him this week. And then Rex Burkhead just kind of turned into a pumpkin last week after just a fantastic week one where he really was not on anyone's like starting radar per se. Do you have any opinion on the running backs or the other pass catchers outside of Brandon Cooks?
Um, None of the other pass catchers. Damien Pierce is definitely interesting to me.
Okay.
If the Texans do a good job watching the film of the Bears Packers game, Damien Pierce can easily hit 100 yards. Um, because the Bears just couldn't finish tackles, um, and Aaron Jones had a spectacular game, and so like he is in that Kareem Hunt range for me. Um, he's a borderline flex. Um, you probably are going to flex him because of where you had to take him in a lot of redrafts that drafted late.
Right.
And I'm totally okay with it. Like he could add a touchdown because um, their passing volume just in the red zone when they've gotten there, they just don't have that red zone option other than OJ Howard or and they could really use somebody who can punch it in from the goal line. So I could see him having a spectacular week. I could see him having a 5 point week. So it's take take it with risk. Like don't expect him to blow you out of the water, um, because he's a rookie and week one he was in a timeshare. Week two he wasn't, and so there's a lot up in the air right now with Damian Pierce.
Yeah, I think on a lot of the rosters I have, there would just be a handful of wide receivers I would feel more comfortable starting over Pierce. But I do think you bring up a good point about, what the Packers were able to show against the Bears defense. They just they can't finish tackles like you said. So it could be an interesting spot for Pierce for sure, especially because of where you drafted him. Yeah. Next game, the 0-2 bowl here. We got the Las Vegas Raiders at the Tennessee Titans. Just a really odd start as far as I'm concerned with both of these teams. A lot of disappointment in the fantasy realm. One that really comes to mind here is Hunter Renfro. Like I don't know. Just not getting the volume that I thought could have been possible. It's been an interesting dynamic with Devontae Adams coming over to town, but Devontae Adams you're starting. I think Josh Jacobs you're most likely starting. Darren Waller you're obviously starting. What are your thoughts about Derek Carr? Is he like a super flex, or would you still feel comfortable rolling with him in a single QB league?
Yeah, I'm definitely comfortable with Derek Carr in a single QB league. Um, but with that being said, um, I would be starting Carson Wentz over him just for reference.
I like that.
Um,
Yeah. Okay.
in terms of what you said about Hunter Renfro, it's interesting because um, the Chargers seem to be able to shut down the slot wide receiver very well. And you, Hunter Renfro last week, when he wasn't facing the Chargers, he had 10 targets and 7 catches. And so I think that Hunter Renfro is going to turn it on and turn it around um, because we've seen it before, and they're just going to pass the ball a lot. It's just Josh McDaniels' offense. They're going to continue to feed the ball. The slot wide receiver in a Patriots offense, it's going to be okay.
For
So
sure. For sure. So just hold steady with Renfro. Gotcha. Like
and
that.
I'm starting Waller. I'm starting Jacobs. I'm starting Adams. They're all um, definitely startable assets. Adams, Waller are must starts. Jacobs is getting enough volume to where you start him.
For sure. So obviously, the Titans offense has not looked great to start the season. You would have figured that against the Giants that they would have showed out better than against the Bills. Again, like that the Bills defense is just phenomenal. So maybe you could have like tempered expectations there a bit, but you've expressed a little bit of concern regarding Derrick Henry because of where I drafted him in a couple of leagues. I really feel like I have to just roll with him. You know what I mean? So I'm
Oh,
starting Henry
absolutely.
just because of obviously him, the player, not just because of his
Your
draft
draft
capital, and
capital. Yeah.
for sure. So we know what he's capable of. They just gotta put it together somehow. Is there anyone in this Tennessee offense that you feel comfortable starting at this point?
I want to be comfortable with Burks,
Right.
but
Yeah.
his when he is on the field, his target volume is really impressive. Like really impressive. But he is just not staying on the field the whole time, which is really just frustrating as a Burks owner. You just want to see what Garrett Wilson is getting and what even Jahan Dotson, you want this involvement. Jahan Dotson played 99% of the snaps, and Burks, I don't think he hit 50,
Oh
you
wow.
know,
Yeah.
and so, and part of that was because of the benching. And
Yeah.
after the benching, Treylon Burks didn't play another snap. And so that's encouraging because they view him as a starter, and Robert Woods was still on the field
Oh, interesting. Okay.
after the benching.
That's a good distinction. Okay.
And so they see him as a starter, but he's not a full time starter yet. So Derrick Henry is the only one I want to start. And right now, it's you're scared to start him. And
Yeah.
it's that's so disappointing when it's a first round pick and you're like, can I actually start this guy? Has he fallen off the cliff? Um,
Right.
so I expect him to get a lot of touches this game just to just to get him back, just to give him. They haven't really given him a ton of volume, and so they were last year before the injury. He was getting 25, 30 touches a game,
Yeah.
and I don't know that he has 30 touches on the season. So
Right. Yeah, it was kind of odd in week one. Dontrell Hilliard had the 2 pass catching touchdowns, which maybe this has just become more of a trend across the league where they just really want to balance out like the usage of these guys, especially with this point of Henry's career. But I mean, like the days of like the legit workhorses were already dwindling down. Your like Najee Harris's of the world, like what he demonstrated last year is extremely rare, and then Henry the last couple of seasons, when he's been healthy. So yeah, I think
But,
you're right.
like,
Yeah,
Henry's never been a third down back guy. Like, he's
right.
never been somebody who catches the ball a lot. And so even if Dontrell Hilliard is involved on third down, you would expect that Henry can just do his thing, like he's done year after year without being involved on that third down. But if they're not going to give him the volume, then he's not going to produce.
Correct. Yeah, gotcha. All right. So we're moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs at the Indianapolis Colts. Travis Kelsey, you're starting. Patrick Mahomes, you're starting. I think you can be pretty comfortable starting Clyde Edwards-Helaire. How about Juju? After the disappointing week 2 there, is he kind of just like top of the bench? Are you flexing him, or where you're at with him?
Yeah, he is. He's definitely an enigma.
Yeah,
Uh, because this Colts defense has been bad without Darius Leonard or Shaquille Leonard.
that's right. Yeah,
Um, optimistically I want to because I believe in Juju and I think he's talented, but I am not comfortable. There's not a league that I have him where he's sitting in my starting lineup right now,
okay.
because it's just going to be spread so thin. Other than Kelsey, there's not a receiving option that I'm really willing to test it out. And maybe it was just the Chargers shutting down the slot wide receiver again, um, but we just don't know at this point. So I would much rather start Hunter Renfro or Brandon Ayuk or there's these guys that were taken at the same point or later that I would feel more comfortable rolling out.
I like that. I like that. Okay. On the Colts side of the ball, like Jonathan Taylor, you're obviously starting. We want Michael Pittman back. Please, Michael Pittman, please be healthy. Outside of Pittman and Taylor, after what Matt Ryan showed, I cannot start him as a super flex. I did unfortunately in one league, and it essentially cost me the week. Just really horrendous stuff. Now, obviously, Pittman was not in the game there, but I mean, just 5 turnovers is just this is really bad against, I believe, a pretty winnable opponent. It was
Jacksonville.
Jacksonville. That's right. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, that's just, oh boy, yeah, that was not good. So, outside of Taylor and Pittman, if he's healthy, is there anyone on this Colts offense you feel comfortable starting?
No.
Didn't think so. Okay. And another one who was like kind of sneaky last week was like Paris Campbell. Like, oh, okay, can we trust him? Some people played him.
Didn't
I
have a catch.
didn't have a catch. Just a horrendous situation there. So definitely we want Pittman back, and you're still are starting Jonathan Taylor. I still like Naeem Hines, maybe not as a flex play, but as like the bye weeks come and as the injuries start piling up, I do like him potentially as a flex play if you're kind of desperate there. So I do like Hines. I like his potential, but outside of just that's very small core of players, very easy to bench and not even probably roster a lot of these guys.
Mhm.
To be honest. So moving on to what I would consider to be the game of the week, you got the mighty Buffalo.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the very mighty Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins. Both teams are 2-0 in the same division. It's going to be electric. Um, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, you are obviously starting. Um, Gabe Davis did not suit up on Monday nights. That really kind of screwed some people up because he was kind of questionable, but figuring he would play and then he didn't. It's like, oh boy. Yeah, it's very rare to get hurt in like a walkthrough of a practice, but
Mhm.
whatever. Oh my goodness. So if he is active, are you comfortable starting Gabe Davis this week?
Yeah, he's a flex to me.
Okay,
Um, I'm not the hugest Gabe Davis guy. I think he's going to fulfill a Tyler Lockett sort of role to where like the weeks that you start him, he's going to have 4 points, and then the weeks that he's on your bench, he's going to have 24 points.
yeah, yeah,
I think he's going to have that similar trajectory of 1 week he's startable, 1 week he's not, and so um, I think that he could have a good game, but he's just a flex option for me. He's not a solid wide receiver too, like a lot
gotcha.
of people in the community see him as.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Um, and what he showed in the playoffs, it really was tremendous.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
I get it. And again, a high volume offense or high scoring offense, so it makes a lot of sense, right? But yeah, I certainly was skeptical as well. You're at his cost, you are basically drafted him at his ceiling, so that's why I was a little like iffy on him, come draft day. But either way. I don't really know what to make of the backfield there. I think with the
Don't start any
opportunities,
of them.
don't start
Don't.
any of them. It's interesting because I think Devin Singletary has looked good with the opportunities he's been given, but he just is not getting viable fantasy opportunity.
Yeah,
And
when your team is up by 35 points and you only have 6 carries,
yeah,
I there's no better script for Devin Singletary than that script right there, and he had 6 carries. Like, I don't think you can start a Bills running back until maybe James Cook takes a big role. And
yeah.
I don't even know if like they're gonna coach that in. Like they just don't use running back. So
They honestly
why?
just might not need to. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand why they keep drafting running backs if they're just not gonna use them. Like,
Yeah, it really does make you wonder for sure. Kind of an interesting player in this offense is Dawson Knox. I like him in theory, right? Like in that tight end range, it's like, oh, you're getting paired up with Josh Allen. Awesome. Just as not getting targets. Are you kind of holding tight with him, or is he borderline droppable at this point? Where are you at with him?
yeah, the thing with Dawson Knox is he's touchdown or bust. Like,
Right.
um, but here's my stipulation: I won't start him unless if Gabriel Davis is out. If
Okay.
Gabriel Davis is out, I think that this game has shootout potential. And so I am okay throwing him in the lineup because, it's Stefan Diggs and then no one. And so Dawson Knox definitely would have a great opportunity for a touchdown. And Dolphins coverage linebackers are some of the worst in the league. And so he definitely could score a touchdown. Um, and so like I wouldn't say don't start him if Gabriel Davis is in, because odds are you don't have a better option. So you're probably firing him up, but again, he scores or you're disappointed.
Gotcha. No, I think that that's extremely fair. I have a very similar like thought process with Knox. Just had like semi higher hopes and then just did not it just is not getting a ton of volume. But I'm with you. Miami Dolphins had just an insane win against the Baltimore Ravens in week 2. Really just so exciting. Like there's not a chance that a Brian Flores coached Dolphins team is coming back and doing what they did. Now, of course, that team didn't have Tyreek Hill either, but still, yeah, you're starting Tyreek, you're starting Jalen Waddle. I think to Tua Tagovailoa is a starting caliber option as well, just simply because of the talent that is around him, and he is pretty good to boot. Even though that's a never-ending debate as well. Hopefully, that is going to be sort of settled here this year. Well, and moving on, obviously, but we're kind of iffy on Chase Edmonds.
Yeah,
I'm
I would bench Chase Edmonds this week if you have a better option. Like if you're sitting with
yeah,
Travis Etienne, then you've got to start him. But if
right,
if you've even got one of these rookie wide receivers, Jahan Dotson, or I would start Elijah Moore over him right now. I would start DK Metcalf over him right now.
yep,
And I don't like that because everyone knows that I'm a huge Chase Edmonds guy, but right now he just doesn't have a defined role.
yeah.
And so you may be frustrated when he has 8 catches this week or he has 8 touches in total. You just can't trust him right now.
For sure. Speaking of trust, where are you at with Mike Gesicki? Is he kind of like Dawson Knox for you, where he's kind of touchdown or bust, or
Well, yes, but I would trust Dawson Knox with my firstborn child before I'd start Mike Gesicki.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Yeah, I am intrigued to see how Raheem Mostert is going to be involved in the running game as well. But I do echo a lot of your thoughts there. Very excited for that game. That one should be a fantastic matchup there. Moving on to the Detroit Lions at the Minnesota Vikings, looking like the Vikings are hoping to bounce back after the Monday night loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. That was just glorious to watch from my perspective. But stick to this game here. I think Jared Goff is an interesting play, definitely for Superflex. You're starting Swift as long as he's healthy. I think you're starting Amon-Ra St. Brown, like just an unbelievable amount of usage and just
Mhm.
taking off right as he left off from last season. So you really love to see that. I think TJ Hawkinson is still a player I would be willing to start in my tight end spots. Again, just in that range of tight ends where they were drafted, I just got to keep rolling with them, especially with how good like the Lions offense has been looking. Is there anyone else in this offense that you would be interested in starting?
Uh, Not really. I think you capped it off well. Swift, Amon Ra are the absolute starts. And then, Goff is a borderline starter in QB1. And TJ Hawkinson, you have to start him because of where you drafted him.
For sure, for sure. On the Viking side of the ball, obviously a very shaky performance from Dalvin Cook. We'll just start with him. Is he someone that you're just are kind of rolling with regardless, or is he kind of like a borderline bench at this point?
Yeah, it's really tough. And I, he's just not getting volume. I am starting him, but there are probably 15, 18 running backs that I would play over him. Like
Gotcha.
for right now, gosh, this just feels gross to say out loud, but him and Jeff Wilson are in a tier for me.
There you go. Yeah.
And I expect Jeff Wilson to have more points than Dalvin Cook this week. Which again is gross to say, but until he's one where like I want to see it. But like this Kevin O'Connell offense, I don't know that it's heavy on running back.
Mm,
And so that's my concern is that with the head coaching change, he does not want to involve Dalvin Cook. He likes Jefferson, he likes Osborne, he likes Irv, he likes the second tight end Munt there. For some reason, he's being
right.
very involved, and so it's just it. You've got to start him, but he's the RB 18, RB 19 for me.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you touched on the pass catching options. I think, well, obviously you're starting Justin Jefferson. You kind of expressed some caution about Adam Thielen. Thielen to
Yeah,
me is just a player I can't quit. So I would feel obligated to have him in a starting lineup. But despite just all of his targets came from like the late third quarter and through the fourth quarter. That's when he got all of his action on Monday night when it was just heavy pass scripted, and that to me is just silliness. I mean, obviously you're gonna pepper Jefferson a ton, but I mean, what is like feeling like hurt or something? Like I don't get it. Like why is he not getting the ball?
I think Thielen may have hit his age cliff here.
Could be.
I
It's
when
32.
I watched the Eagles game a little bit the other night, he looked slow, and like he looks to me like Alshon Jeffrey did in his final season with the Eagles.
Oh, I
Um,
got that's a good comparison.
like
Yeah. Okay.
like he has the opportunity to go up and get the ball, but his separation is not going to be there. And so for
Sure.
me, Adam Thielen is a bench. I would
Bench.
I
Okay.
would I would play Noah Brown over him,
Okay.
and
Okay.
with relative ease. He just, if the Vikings hadn't been getting stomped, he would have ended the game with maybe a catch.
Yeah.
Um, and so he used to be this touchdown monster, and he may be able to do that, but he is, to me, he's going to be a touchdown or bust sort of guy, because he can't create that separation on the field. So he's just going to have to win jump balls, corner routes in the end zone, because in the open field, he's one of the slower guys. He can't create that separation anymore.
Gotcha. Okay. The definitely good thing to look out for there, because again, you just have these memories of these like multiple seasons in a row of like double digit touchdowns and stuff, but you have to look at what's in front of you now, so I think that that's a very interesting point to like pivot off of. Wanted to touch on Irv Smith Jr. for a second. I thought he looked great despite the really brutal drop that would have been like easily a 50-yard touchdown. um Outside of that, which is really rough, I think he looked great. I think he was implemented well, despite the little sprinkling of months, but he's someone who I think is definitely a borderline starter in the tight end realm. Would you feel comfortable rolling with him as a tight end?
Uh, Not this week.
Not this
Um,
week. Okay.
I I am not feeling great about him. Like, his volume wasn't great. The week before that, Munt was super involved and Irv was not. And so, like, there's guys that are probably still on your wire like Hayden Hurst, that or Tyler Higbee. Both of those guys, just based on a volume standpoint, I would I would rather have them. Tyler Conklin is another one that their
Okay.
target volume is good. And so I would rather aim for that rather than what I've seen from Herb thus far.
Okay. Gotcha. I like that. Next matchup is the Baltimore Ravens at the New England Patriots. Kind of a funneled offense here for the Ravens, as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, you're starting Lamar Jackson, you're starting Mark Andrews. I think Rashad Bateman, despite not a lot of targets per se, he is making the most of his catches. Really tremendous stuff. You love to see it happen, but you do just want a bit more volume there. Um, if J.K. Dobbins is active, I don't know if I could start him his first week back. Seems like you agree there. Um, and then on the New England side of the ball, there really isn't a lot of players I'm going to feel great starting in this offense at this point. Um, Maybe outside of Jacoby Myers, if he plays, I know he's questionable at this time. Where are you at with the Patriots? Any
Um,
of the running backs you like enough to start, or
uh,
not really?
I like Damien Harris enough to start. He
Mhm.
had 15 carries last week.
Okay.
He has more catches than Ramondre Stevenson on the season. And so, like, a lot of people were expecting him or Ramondre to kind of fill that pass catching role. I think it's going to be
I'm one of them.
really pretty split between the two of them.
Yep.
They're both mediocre talents in terms of pass catching, and Harris to me is just simply the better football player. And so I really don't know how good this Ravens defense is against the run. And so like I'll flex him in a similar capacity to Kareem Hunt. Um, but I don't want him as my RB2. But if you own him, you're probably okay flexing him and getting, you're probably going to get 10 points with the upside of a touchdown. Um, that's kind of, he's catching 2 passes a game, around 70 yards a game. That's just where he's going to lie. And then if you get a touchdown out of him, you're ecstatic with that. But
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, I would definitely agree with that. Um, I probably would be more hesitant to start them, but I think you make a good point there. With Harris having more catches than Stevenson, at least at this point of the season, so that gives you a little bit more cushion there for sure. But it's just kind of like 1 week, one wide receiver is going to score, then the next week, the next. So I don't think there's any kind of continuity between if it's going to be like Aguilar every single week or Bourne every single week. I think Myers will have like a pretty
yeah,
steady target share, but
yeah,
outside of that, it's just
I
kind of like I
I
don't
feel
even know
like
what.
Myers and Harris are pretty similar to where you'll get that nice floor,
Yeah,
but that ceiling is tough.
for sure.
But if
All right.
Myers is playing, I would probably start him over Harris in that flex spot. It's
Okay.
specifically in PPR. Not in non PPR, Harris is several tiers above Jacoby Myers because Jacoby Myers does not like the end zone.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure. All right. A couple more in this group. We got the Cincinnati Bengals at the New York Jets. You're starting Joe Burrow. You're starting Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, as long as he's active, which he should be if he was last week. Um, those are the big four in Cincinnati for me. The New York Jets are a very interesting one. I mean, you got Flacco, just like over 50 pass attempts per game on average so far this year. I would feel comfortable starting Garrett Wilson for sure. I think Elijah Moore is more of like a flex option. I mean, I think they're both are flex options, but would have a little bit more confidence in Garrett Wilson after the week 2 performance. Where you at with like Brees Hall and Michael Carter? I think kind of an interesting development in their usage in this offense, right? Are you flexing both of them, or what's going on there for you?
Yeah, that's exactly right. They're both flex plays right now. Um, they're not. Neither of them are sexy right now.
Right.
They're going to share the work, and Carter's work is going to dwindle a little bit down the stretch here, I do believe. But right now, they're just comfortable with running both of those backs, and Brees looked great last week. Like, I'm really excited to see him just continue to progress. But right now, those guys are just flex options.
Gotcha. Yeah, I like that. All right. Looking at the New Orleans Saints at the Carolina
Hold on,
Panthers.
hold on.
Oh,
I
I missed.
would start both the tight ends in this game, in
Oh,
PPR.
okay. Hurst
Her,
and Conklin.
yes, they both have 15 targets over the past 2 games. If you're getting 7.5 targets to a tight end a game, that's what you're wanting. You're wanting some good target volume there, and so those are guys that um, I'm definitely willing to start. If you're the guy who grabs Komet or Njoku, or
Yeah,
you know these guys are great options at the tight end position that are probably lurking on your waiver wire.
I love it. Good calls there, and I would agree. So I apologize for overlooking the tight ends there for sure. All right, the New Orleans Saints at the Carolina Panthers. Alvin Kamara, of course, was like the late out designation there. Then there was news of Jameis Winston having like fractures in his back. Like that was I didn't know about that until Sunday morning. I don't think.
Uh-huh.
So that was kind of alarming. But I think in theory, you like Chris Olave, you like Michael Thomas, you like Jarvis Landry. Um, Still kind of iffy on the tight end situation there. Jawan Johnson is an interesting option, but I don't think we're starting him unless it's like a super deep tight end premium kind of situation. Um, Hopefully Kamara is able to suit up. I think with the rib injury and so I think if all those guys are active, I'm comfortable starting all of them despite the down game, against the Bucks. How about you in that with them? Are you good with them or
Yeah, absolutely. I think Chris Olave is one catch away from a very big game. And so he's the one I'm most worried about. But like, if he hits, he's gonna hit.
oh for
Um,
sure yeah
this should be a much better matchup. Jameis should be more healthy altogether. I'm loving starting all of these guys against a defense that just hails in comparison to what they were going through last week.
for sure for sure. Then the Carolina Panthers, you're starting Christian McCaffrey. Starting DJ Moore, you're glad he got the touchdown at least
Yeah,
last
holding
last
your
week.
breath when he's in your lineup, but yeah, you start him.
Anyone outside of those two that you would feel comfortable starting, maybe Baker in a super flex or not against the Saints?
Yeah, I'm fine with Baker in the super flex. The thing
Okay.
about the Saints is they know how to play Brady. Like, they're not this incredible defense, but they have Brady figured out. And so I don't think they're a tough defense. Like, they have some good pieces, but I think that Baker can, have his 20-point week and be fine.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's anyone outside of DJ Moore in the passing game that I mean even like borderline like rosterable, like
I
glad to see signs of life from Robbie Anderson in week one. I'm
see,
just not
but
sure.
Anderson is that Tyler Lockett to where, like, this next week he's probably going to have 100 yards and 14 touchdowns, but
Right.
you just have no confidence starting him.
Correct, correct. Gotcha. All right. Yes, that's a pretty straightforward matchup as far as the options there. So we are going to take a break from looking at the games and we're going to wrap up some listener questions. The next one is from my brother at Chimichanga44. Basically, he's asking for a flex play here. Okay, he's got his RB1 and RB2, wide receiver one, wide receiver two figured out. Coming in with Montgomery, he's going to be having the RB2 as Michael Carter. Then his wide receivers are Chase and Diggs, so he's set there.
Mm-hmm.
But he's got sort of a wealth of options. A lot of these guys we've already talked about, so I think we can narrow down some of the choices here. So he's leaning Garrett Wilson, but then the other options, Travis Etienne, Devin Singletary, Jacoby Myers, Jahan Dotson, and Robert Woods. Really, the only two that I would recommend would be Wilson and Dotson, and then I guess the third one would be Myers. I can pretty easily rule out ETN, Singletary, and Woods.
Yes, I would agree. In full PPR, I'm
It is
okay.
full PPR. Yeah.
Okay. I am putting Myers in that same tier as Garrett Wilson in full PPR.
Okay.
So if you want the upside play, go Garrett Wilson. If you want a safe floor, somebody who's going to get you 12 points if he's on the field, then go Jacoby Myers.
Okay. Where would you put like Jahan Dotson in that mix, or would
I
he
mean,
would he be the odd guy out?
he's behind both those guys just in terms of target volume.
Perfect. Yep. Okay.
And so that makes me hesitant. I mean, like I said earlier, I'm still fine starting him, but I would prefer Myers and Wilson to
Gotcha.
him
Oh yeah,
in a
that's
full
right. Yeah.
PPR.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that when we covered the Commanders as well. He'd be likely the guy you would not throw into the lineup between McLaurin and Samuel. So that's consistent. I like that. Good. All right. Next one is coming from at Harding underscore three. A friend of the show, Axton, another content creator for the IDP guys. Go check out his waiver wire show every Tuesday afternoon. Him and Mike Sicoli, awesome show. So Axton asks, did not specify if it's PPR, half PPR, or any of that, but Curtis Samuel, Christian Kirk, or Allen Robinson.
Oh, that's tough. Not the Robinson. I'm benching him, but
Okay.
um, um, I think that I'm probably gonna go Curtis Samuel, and
Okay.
it's interesting, but Asante Samuel's been doing some really good things this year. J.C. Jackson is a cornerback we know as being very good at what he does. Um, it's so tough to even think about benching Kirk right now. Like your options must be great that you're benching Kirk or Samuel at this
Right.
point in time. Um, but I just like Samuel's matchup just a little bit better.
Okay.
Um, but I don't think you can go wrong starting either of them. They're both just two guys that you got later than they should have been drafted and have just been showing out and been spectacular.
Definitely. Yeah, so for me, I was going with Christian Kirk here. So if you are going more on the Curtis Samuel, we'll have to see how that one plays out. Because last week, when I had Christian Welch on, we agreed on basically every single start sit question except for one. And the difference of that was Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Miles Sanders. I was on the Edwards-Helaire side. He was on the Sanders side. So that was the difference of 4 points for CEH. So it'll just be interesting to see how this one plays out. But so far, we're basically on the same page overall. So that's cool. Now this last one is from at Andrew Nordmeyer. He's asking about a DST question. Okay.
Okay.
So he right now has the Cleveland DST. They're at home against the Steelers. Pretty good matchup already, but he just was wondering if he should just roll with them or stream some other options. The three he's considering are the Panthers against the Saints, the Jets against the Bengals, or the Chiefs against the Colts. Now the Chiefs, of course, are well rested that they played last
Oh,
Thursday
give me
night.
the Chiefs.
Gotcha. So you would go Chiefs on the road over Cleveland.
Yeah, I the way that Matt Ryan played last week, it's fantasy defense heaven. Like, um, if he continues to play like that, that's the Colts are going to be the team that you're going to be trying to stream the defense against. Like last year, it was the Jaguars. You're
That's right.
like, oh,
You're
do
you're
I pick
guaranteed, an interception and like
right?
2 sacks,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and so with the performance last week, with the potential that their one receiving option is not going to play again this week,
Yeah.
and the Chiefs defense, especially their pass rush, has looked nice. I'm definitely okay. I would prefer them to a lot of defenses this week.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I would tend to say probably could just roll with Cleveland, but I think you bring up great points about the Chiefs as well. So, Andrew, good luck with your decision. Ultimately, you will press that submit button, but hopefully this helped you figure that out. So now we're gonna get into our final uh stage of games here. The Sunday later slate, starting off with the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Los Angeles Chargers. Um, Anything in this matchup stand out to you? I think other than the Chargers, kind of the obvious like Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, even though he's been a little bit disappointing, I'm still happy to roll with them. How about like Keenan Allen? If he's active, are you comfortable rolling with him?
So, yes, I am comfortable with Keenan Allen, but I think the biggest question mark for me right now is Herbert. If Herbert's not in, it changes the perspective on all of these players. And at that point, maybe Mike Williams to me is just a flex option rather
Okay.
than a
Yeah.
wide receiver too. Um, so a lot of this for me is going to hedge on whether Herbert is playing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of buried the lead there. I mentioned about Herbert just for a second there at the top of the show. But yeah, I mean, every part of your body is important when you're playing football, but especially your ribs. You just can just the amount of it's a very important area of your body to protect as a quarterback. It's going to affect your confidence throwing, your confidence in every phase. So he definitely is a massive uh, s- uh, swivel point of this offense. But I think if you have Gerald Everett as a tight end option, I think you're comfortable rolling with him as well. Joshua Palmer, I think, really bailed you out with that touchdown. He was kind of a borderline flex play anyway last week, kind of a risky thing on a Thursday night game. So he kind of bailed you out. Happy to have him on my roster, but not ready to start him, even if Keenan Allen is in or out. It's still a little iffy there. The Jaguars are a very interesting team. I think it's really going to be hard to not play Christian Kirk. Um, I think James Robinson, for me, has been cemented as a starting option for sure. Um, then a lot of kind of borderline guys like Trevor Lawrence, who has been okay, and a lot of passing volume there as well. Anyone else like another questionable one is like Travis Etienne. We all had high hopes for him, but has like disappointed. I mean, unless you just want to get 7 points every week, well then there you go. But anyone else in this offense you are interested in as a starter or not so much?
In full PPR, I am definitely okay starting Evan Ingram. Um,
Oh, perfect. Yep. Okay.
yeah, his target volume has been really nice. He just hasn't hit pay dirt. Um, and like his yardage hasn't been great, but he's been catching the ball a lot. So in those full PPR leagues, Evan Ingram is a fine start at the position.
I like that. I like that. And now we'll go on to the Los Angeles Rams at the Arizona Cardinals. Cooper Cup, obviously, you're starting him. Allen Robinson, you kind of express some hesitation there after.
It wasn't hesitation. It was just the fact that Curtis Samuel and
Oh, just of those options, of those
Christian
particular
Kirk
options. I gotcha.
were
Okay,
much higher in terms of startability than
perfect.
Allen Robinson.
But in general, you would say you could feel comfortable with him in your
Yeah,
lineup.
he's in that same tier as Brandon Ayuk for me right now.
Okay.
To where like he's going to be a nice flex play. He's going to sit right in that borderline RB2, RB3 range, or sorry, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 range. And I am okay starting him.
I think because of the weapons in the offense, I think you that there's a lot to like with Matthew Stafford, even though he's been kind of borderline disappointing. Definitely had a nice bounce back in week two. How about Tyler Higbee? Is he a tight end that you feel comfortable starting?
His he's pretty similar to Evan Ingram to me right now, to where
Okay.
he's
Yep.
not seeing the end zone a whole ton, but his target share is just insane. So it's hard to not start him. I mean, it'd be nice if he caught his targets and all that stuff, but
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Um, a very interesting storyline in the Rams so far this season has been like the running backs. We have Cam Akers and we have Darrell Henderson. As a big Darrell Henderson fan, I have been enjoying the use, but as someone who has some investment in Cam Akers, it's very I guess tilting is the right word to very concerning to see obviously his lack of snaps in week one, then week two it improved, but I don't know if I would feel comfortable rolling with him as a starter or where you at there?
yeah. So I am your resident Cam Akers hater.
Oh, okay,
I
gotcha.
I'm in 41 leagues. I don't have a lick. I don't have a single share of Cam Akers.
Oh wow, okay.
And honestly, I watched him play last week, and um, I mean, you can roll him out, but he doesn't look great. I think right now Darrell Henderson is the better runner, post Achilles, and so I'm not starting either of them with confidence, but I am probably okay flexing either one of them. Um, because I think it may fluctuate from week to week. And we could see a 22 touch Cam Akers this week, and I could be totally wrong. But even if Cam Akers is in, his efficiency just is really poor right now.
Yep.
And you can just tell that he's not the guy that we saw a year and a half ago or whatever.
That's right. Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, I am still I'm a pretty big fan of Darrell Henderson. So for me, I would still be starting Henderson over Akers. I like Henderson as like a flex play or as like even like a borderline RB2. But the as the Akers usage upticks, my confidence in Henderson will obviously diminish. So definitely something to monitor. But at this point, I am still comfortable starting Henderson. Not so comfortable with Akers, but definitely flex-ish options there. Still a great offense. Still, you want pieces of that offense. So, as long as the workload is there or any kind of opportunity is there, definitely a good thing to bank on. Another player who hasn't exactly suited up much or at all yet to this season is Van Jefferson. So just a kind of a player to keep an eye out for that, but we're not starting him anytime soon necessarily, but definitely a guy to have on your radar. On the Arizona Cardinals side of the ball, uh, James Conner did leave the game early with an ankle, I believe it was an ankle injury. So he's questionable. I believe he did practice today, so that's kind of an iffy option. Again, still a lot of talent on that Rams defense, so that kind of gives me some pause. I don't know if I would feel comfortable starting him this week unless he has just like full practice Thursday, Friday, and whatever. Where you at with James Conner?
Yeah, I am definitely not starting James Conner with confidence. And let's just say that James Conner does not play. Daryl Williams, Benjamin, I'm not comfortable starting any of them. So I would probably not start any of the Cardinals running backs this week. Just James Conner, even when he's been on the field this season, hasn't looked quite the same as he was last year.
Yep,
Um, and so, I just have some hesitations with that um, as well. And so even a healthy James Conner just isn't producing.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, I'm still starting Kyler Murray. I'm still starting Zach Ertz. I'm still starting Marquise Brown. Anyone else in that passing attack you'd feel comfortable starting? Is Greg Dortch? Is he tempting to you or not so much?
If Rondo Moore is out, I think he absolutely is tempting.
Okay,
Um, I I would clarify in a PPR.
for sure.
He is tempting. I wouldn't touch him in standard, but in PPR, the ball has to go somewhere, and Greg Dortch is just waving his hand, saying, "Hey, I'm here."
Yep, for sure, for sure. Gotcha. I think that that's a good distinction, right? If it's PPR, if Moore is out, then you could kind of hold your nose and throw him in there.
Mhm.
All right. Last two games that we have to cover here. We got the Atlanta Falcons at the Seattle Seahawks. So we'll start with the Seahawks. Um,
I don't want to start any Seahawks.
don't want to start any Seahawks. Okay. I just have such a soft spot for Metcalf and Lockett still. It would be hard for me to get them out of my starting lineup, but I just am stubborn that way. When it comes to the two of them, I'm happy to not start anyone else on that offense. But for you, it'd be even less than that. So,
Yeah,
so we're a little bit split there. But I mean, to your point, they both right now are I think Lockett is wide receiver 37 or something of that nature. I think Metcalf is even lower than that, with only, I think, 15 points on the whole season at this point. It's very disappointing. But
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that the Seahawks hit the end zone. Just with specifically this week, I don't know that they will find the end zone. And
sure.
if they do, I think it's probably on a Walker or Penny run. Um, and so I just right now that offense is just so bad. It's Chicago esque, and so I don't. I until I see something more, I don't really want to start any of them. Now, there's going to be places where I have to,
Yeah.
but if I can avoid it, I am avoiding it.
For sure, for sure. Yep. On the Atlanta side of the ball, I think Drake London is a start. I think Kyle Pitts is a start, despite the disappointing start to the season. I just think like if you got him, you got to roll with him, and just at this point, just hope for the best. I mean, it's just completely ridiculous how he just hasn't been like involved. But to me, he's just as another like level of like compared to like Cole Kmet, right? Where like it's very disappointing that the usage is disappointing, but I mean, just that the opportunity has to reverse at some point in time, right?
Yeah, for me, this is Pitt's warning. If he does not perform this week, I'm not starting him next week.
Yeah,
And that's tough because like we know the freak athlete he is. We know that he can be absolutely a elite weapon. But if he's not getting the target volume, if he's not seeing, if he doesn't have, more than a 17-18% target share this week, I will probably bench him next week. It's just I it's hard to rely on a guy that's getting 2 targets a game.
right. I think a player of his caliber, I think it's justifiable to give like a longer leash, right? But at the
Right.
same time, it's like if he's just continuing to, um, make your team suffer, you just gotta reverse course, So I think that's fair,
Yeah, and it's
Um,
also about like um if you the option that you have to replace him. If your option to replace him is Cole Kmet, start Pitts. Start
yeah,
Pitts. But if you have Hayden Hurst or Tyler Conklin available to you
right.
by next week, I I would probably start them over him if he does not show something this week.
Yeah, no, yeah, again, it's so funny. Like the recurring theme is like it sounds gross to say, but this is what we have
Yes.
to do. We have to really optimize our decisions and not just be so locked in or honed into just one specific player, no matter how much we love them or not. In theory, it's just not going to help you win. It's not going to help you win. It's a very
Mhm.
fascinating adjustment that we have to sometimes make. Um, Also in the Falcons, an interesting player, of course, is Cordero Patterson. Is he someone that you would feel comfortable starting?
Because the Seahawks are so bad, I am definitely okay flexing Cordell Patterson. I don't want him
Gotcha.
as my RB2, but
Correct.
he does fit well into the flex.
Agreed there. Okay. Look, going now to the Green Bay Packers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers, of course, will not have Mike Evans, a struggling Tom Brady, um, Leonard Fournette. I think I would still be comfortable starting. I don't know about a lot of the other pass catchers though on the offense because they signed Cole Beasley today and uh, you know Julio Jones and Russell Gage. I just don't know. Did you have any stronger opinion on those guys?
So so here's my thing. I think that there's a big possibility that the Buccaneers walk out with Russell Gage, Cole Beasley, and Brashad Perryman as their starting wide receivers this week.
Right.
I am starting Lenny as a RB1 with absolute confidence. I mean, Monty in a game where they just knew that he was getting the ball on basically every touch. He was still, he had over 100 yards when he had 100 yards against the Cowboys defense. I definitely think that they are going to lean on the run game heavily if Godwin and Julio are both out.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good call. How about Brady? Like, would you feel comfortable starting Brady in this contest, or
So here's the thing. I don't think the Packers defense is spectacular, but it
sure?
is good. But I am okay starting Brady, but guys like Carr, Wentz, I would start over him.
Yeah.
Tua, I would start over him.
Okay.
And so if it's tough because like you don't want to drop Brady.
Right.
Um, in one QB leagues, you don't often want to own two QBs. So, like in all likelihood, you're probably firing him up. But I'm expecting a 15, 20 point week from Brady. I'm not expecting an elite QB week until, especially if all three of those guys are out. Now, if Julio is in, if Godwin is in, if Julio and Godwin are in, that changes it uh, significantly because they would have pass catchers. But I'm not a Russell Gage guy. I would think that Cole Beasley would be their best receiving option, and he's been with the team for 48 hours.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like we're talking hours and not like weeks yet, right? Um, yeah, so it's just very fascinating. Never would I have thought like, oh, I'm gonna bench, but it just no Godwin, no Evans. It really makes you think, on the Packers side of the ball, um, Aaron Rodgers is kind of one of these borderline kind of fantasy starts as well, at least for me. I'm still very confident in Aaron Jones. I think I've come around a bit more on AJ Dillon. I do like to see him implemented in a much more consistent way. And then he's a threat to be a touchdown scorer every week. Where are you at with AJ Dillon? Would he be a starting option in this matchup against the Bucks for you?
Um, I I would like to avoid him if I can
Sure.
because Buccaneers, um, their front seven is just insane.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Um, I if I can avoid starting a running back against them, I'm going to try with everything I've got. um, so like Aaron Jones, I'm fine starting because he's got that good passing volume. He is Aaron Rodgers' number one wide receiver right now, so I'm okay wheeling him out. AJ Dillon, I am trying desperately to find a different option.
For sure, for sure. Okay.
Um,
And yeah, go ahead.
in our community league, I have two QBs, Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers.
Oh man.
now,
Jeez.
now, in any other like universe, I would have two just elite options to start week after week. I
Two top 6 QBs. Oh man.
I thought I was going to be absolutely set at QB, and now I'm like, do I go pick up Jared Goff?
Yeah, no, it's really maddening. Yeah. Yeah, in that
Yeah,
league I have Burrow and Winston, who I was even questionable about getting a second quarterback, but I think literally everyone got a second quarterback in that league. It's crazy. So I'm like, well, I want to get Winston just as like an upside thing, but yeah, so it's just oh, it's so crazy. But so Aaron Rodgers is shockingly just a questionable fantasy start at this point. Any of the pass catchers you feel comfortable starting at this point?
Aaron Jones.
Other than Aaron Jones, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that Robert Tonyan, when he is fully healthy, I do think he's going to be a solid option. But I don't know that he gets there till week 6, week 7, coming off that ACL tear.
Sure.
And so at this point, I am not willing to start anyone but Aaron Jones.
There you go. There it is. I like that. All right. So Aaron Jones it is. All right. Well, that's gonna cover it for the week 3 slate. Zach, I appreciate you coming on and spending all the time talking football. Again, it's such a pleasure to be on and talk with you. I love your insight and I love what you bring to the game. But can you please just remind everyone where they can find you and your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am on Twitter at Zach K Attack NFL. I am doing a series on sleep or on Twitter that is sleeper prop bets for the week. And so that is something that week one, I gave a 5-leg parlay that hit. Got
Oh,
had a couple of people tag along and won a couple of people several hundreds of dollars. And then week two, Chase Edmonds was the thorn in my side. And so that's just a series. I'm gonna do a 5-leg parlay each week and just see if we can have some fun with that. And then I write for Dynasty Pros. My last article was on Russell Wilson and how he is an elite QB option. So not feeling great about my last piece of work right now, but
yeah.
hopefully he turns it around here. And then I've got a podcast, Dynasty Never Rests. You can find it on all of your major podcasting, wherever you listen to your podcast. It's more than likely there.
Awesome. Well, Zach, obviously, I'm a big fan of you and a big fan of your work, and obviously the proof is in the pudding. I mean, you play in a ton of leagues and you're very successful at it. So once again, I appreciate you coming on. It's always a blast. Yeah. So everyone who's watching, good luck this week. We hope you win all your matchups, but we do hope that this was at least a way to kind of fine tune your process for your start sit decisions. So I'm Steve, and with Zach, keep climbing and good luck, everybody.